So for most of my life and probably all my life, I've pretty much have been a shy person. I'm introverted, which is not really the best skill to have, especially if you're a business professional, entrepreneurial like me, because a lot of business is sales, and sales really is heavily dependent on how well you are as a communicator. Well, I think I've been able to prove that you don't have to be the greatest communicator to be successful as an entrepreneur in sales. But I'm sharing this video of an icebreaker I did 20 years ago. I heard of an organization called Toastmasters. I'm sure a lot of people who are in this professional development field are probably aware of it. Well, 20 years ago, I didn't join it. I was doing a lot of public speaking back then, which was a huge, um, you know, growth outside of my comfort zone for me to do. I think I got pretty good at it, but I definitely could have done, done activities and, worked on myself to become better. Well, fast forward 20 years later, and I finally decided to join. I've done some speaking recently, and I've been really working on growing, growing my company with our marketing that we're doing, and growing myself as I'm making content about who I am and my journey as an entrepreneur. So about 8 years ago, shortly after I joined Toastmasters, you're required to do your first speech, which is called an icebreaker. So I'm actually going to tee up what that icebreaker speech was for me, and maybe not share too much about the things I thought I did well, the things I could have improved on. But some of the initial things were I was really heavily dependent on my notes. And the reason why is I thought I had a good story that I wanted to share, and I didn't want to miss anything. So I used my notes. Now, I know as I get better at speaking, especially speeches or themes that I've talk about on a regular basis, probably wouldn't be dependent on my notes at all. But it's my first time speaking to this group, so I did that. My hand movements and my eye contact were, they weren't the worst, but they definitely weren't the best. I feel like I could have had better vocal inflection and, just lots of things. So anyways, just watch the video and leave a note about Toastmasters if you're familiar with the organization. I think they're coming up on 100 years that the organization has been around. So it's a massive community, 400,000 members, I think, 150 plus countries. But anyways, check out the icebreaker. Let me know your thoughts and tell me how well you think I did.
December 25th, 1987. While most other 8-year-olds were hoping to get a Nintendo or G.I. Joes, what I asked for was an album. I wanted the LL Cool J album titled Bigger and Deffer. My parents loved music. My dad, with his long blonde hair, completely bald up top, he was a classic rock guy. He had this epic stereo system, speakers that were taller than me, stainless steel clad receiver and equalizer, all housed in a custom-made wood cabinet. But the most important component was the record player. Throughout our house, we had crates upon crates of records. I would browse through them all the time. Queen, ZZ Top, Sting. My mom, becoming more and more Americanized, having been in the States for about a decade due to the Vietnam War, she loved to dance with her 4'11", 95-pound frame. Her jive was disco, Bee Gees, Diana Ross. Then it was Michael Jackson, Madonna, Prince. When my dad was working evenings as a chef, it was her turn to play records. I was an anomaly though. I had a kinship to a newer genre called rap. A neighborhood kid introduced me to Run DMC and Beastie Boys, but my favorite, LL Cool J. Dreams do come true, and that Christmas I got that LL Cool J record. Rap music was rare to hear because I wasn't from New York where it originated, or any other big city. I was born in the Southeast, but by that time we had moved up north to my dad's hometown, affectionately known as H-Town. Not H-Town, most commonly associated with Houston, that the 90s R&B group also went by, but a small mid-sized town called Hagerstown in western Maryland in the Appalachian Valley, about 95 miles from both Baltimore and DC. Shortly after that Christmas, my parents divorced, and I spent the rest of my childhood raised by a Vietnamese single mom with no formal education who didn't speak good English. Those factors led us to move into the projects. My collection of rap records didn't grow beyond that one, but the cassette tape era was in full swing, and I would dub any rap music I can get from my friends onto blank tapes. Heavy D, Public Enemy, Slick Rick. Being in the projects, I spent the rest of my childhood influenced by hip-hop culture. That and basketball were my passions, and maybe a little bit of troublemaking too. I got myself into mischief in those days. I wouldn't have labeled myself as a juvie. I was an honor roll student, but I was no saint either. Getting into fist fights, petty mischief, petty misdemeanors. I wouldn't shy away from getting into any trouble when I was with my homies. I always seemed to avoid severe punishment and often came out unscathed or scot-free without any type of injury, in the words of Puff Daddy. The compact disc era came out next, and I started accumulating those as part of my rap collection. Daz Effects, Gangstar, Biz Marquee. I eventually got one of those mini 3-in-1 stereos for my bedroom with the CD player, dual tape deck, and the radio tuner. There was no local rap stations in my hometown, and being 75 miles from the big cities, it was hard to get a clear radio reception. But we learned a hack of how to boost a signal with aluminum foil and a clothes hanger. Listening to the radio for hours upon hours and watching YoMTV Raps midnights on Fridays was how I spent my evenings. When finally tuned in, the best time to listen to the radio was at 5 p.m. for the traffic jam mix. This is when a live DJ would do a masterful mix session on the ones and twos, which was a brilliantly blended mashup of the hip-hop songs that were popular with a hint of artistry. Part of the Asian side of my childhood was participating in one of my mom's favorite pastimes, karaoke. We would record herself, me and my siblings and friends, making homemade lip sync videos and dance videos. My go-to jam, Bobby Brown, Every Little Step. The production value of the videos would increase over time as we would upgrade our equipment from what we could find at Radio Shack. And the most important component that was a game changer for me was the audio mixer. The audio mixer allowed you to fade in and out the sound, and you can go from one track to the next and back with a crossfader. And I would start to mimic how a professional DJ would use a mixer, and that was the beginning of my personal DJ journey. The missing element, though, was coming up with a DJ name. Something that was appropriate, voracious, personal. It was a no-brainer. DJ Scot-Free came naturally. Although now I'm since long retired from my DJ days, I'm still called Scot-Free by my close friends. Now that you know my nickname, you can call me Scot-Free or plain old Free for short. Or you can do what my day one homies do when they call me and I pick up their phones and they say, "Hey, yo, Free." Thank you.